Yeah, so look at all this oil leaking. We're gonna have to replace this one. Although I do look at this side and I mean it's drier, but it's not as wet. So they didn't leave the key for me. I might crank, I think what I'll do is I'll manually crank this over. Just try to build some hydraulic pressure. What the fuck? Tire's off the bead. We're gonna have to fix that too. So this is a mechanically injected motor, diesel motor, and the owner did not leave the key. So luckily, as long as this is in neutral, you can bypass this whole system and start it with my power probe, which is nice. I'm going to now start this thing. Nice. There you go. She's a leaker. Today we're going to use this JIC cap and plug assortment set from Zelcan. I'll leave a link into my Amazon cart for this one. Handy kit. Comes with everything you need to get it done. I recently purchased this not too long ago, and very handy so you don't make a mess. So ease the pressure off of that. And I'm breaking this line. And let's find the appropriate fitting for this one. This feels about right. And that is right. So in this Kubota, we're looking at third one here, which is a number 8. This is a number 8. No, that's, yeah, number 8 JIC. So this is the plug, number 8 JIC plug, number 8 JIC cap. Nice. And we're gonna do the same thing on the one down here. Is punch out these pins and take her home. So I ended up pulling both hydraulic cylinders off of that Kubota because after I started it, this one was pissing really bad, and then the other one, which I have over there, that was dripping. So, I mean, just a matter of time before it fails, so might as well do both of them. Try to eject the hydraulic oil out into this pan. It is not going to be pretty though. Because doing this never goes smooth. Ever. God damn it. I'm going to leave this on just a little bit. And I'm going to push this hydraulic cylinder down all the way so I can get any oil out. So now I'm going to put this cap on here just a little bit. Take this one out. I'm going to pull up on this cylinder. If you pull too quick, it's going to shoot it out like a fucking piss rocket. Nice. Alright. You're not going to be able to get it all out. Just enough to not make too much of a mess. These hydraulic cylinders, depending on the size, they're different. The bigger ones usually have spanner wrench holes. You know, there are two little holes here where you can put a spanner wrench in, and then you can back this thing off. Some of these Kubotas, they have like a hole on either side. Here you go, there's one here, it's a bunch of dirt. And they make special spanner wrenches that you can clip in here and then spin it off. Kubota makes a special one. You can do that. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use a pipe wrench where I'm going to grip the end of this cap and spin off this, spin it off. So I got my tail end in the vise here. So that way when I rotate this thing, it's going to stop and I can take this thing off. Now you don't want to hit the chrome rod. And so I am grabbing the cap and I'm rotating it counterclockwise. There we go. And she popped off. These are finer threads because they're holding back a lot of pressure. And here you go, we're going to slide that out like so. Now that the cap is off, I'm going to take the actual plunger and I'm going to pull this out. I want to do it over some rags or something, just in the event you get some extra hydraulic. We don't have too much. So this is actually your rod itself. So as you can see here, hydraulic oil goes in, and when it goes in, it pushes against this rod here, or against these seals, and it pushes the hydraulic cylinder up. And on your cap end here, when you want to return it, you apply pressure here, and that pushes it back in. All right? So that's kind of how it works. We're going to take this rod apart, but before we do, a good thing you always want to check is the inside of these hydraulic cylinders. And what you want to look for is cross-hatching, similar to like an engine. And this hydraulic cylinder still has some cross-hatching, you know. It doesn't look like it's too badly scored. It's going to be too hard to see in the video, but you always want to look. If you see scratch marks, you're going to want to take this hydraulic cylinder and bring it to a shop to re-hone it out. And the same is true for the rods here. So on this rod, you want to look for any scratching. If there's any rust that builds up on here, you want to get it off with like steel wool, because this also, having a scratched up rod, you're not going to get a good sealing surface. We're going to back this nut out and take this plunger out. This is a 24 millimeter nut, and these are on here tight, real tight. Wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Alright, so I'm going to push this off, and you want to pay attention to the orientation. So you can take a look at the back side, right, and you see how this is flat. When I flip it around, there's a little indentation. The indentation is for an O-ring, which is right here on the back side of the rod. Alright? You want this O-ring here so you don't want any hydraulic oil to leak through the threads. Remember, there's a lot of pressure here, and it will leak. This cap off here. This cap here has a lot of the seals, and the main internal seal in here is what prevents hydraulic oil from pissing out, which is what we saw happening. Sometimes if these rods are extended out and they're exposed to weather, you can get like weather marks, I'll call it. This doesn't look too bad, but there is some weather marks on the top side, probably because this is the top side where the bucket was, and you know, rain and stuff would just sit on here. So I'm going to get my steel wool and just wipe this off real quick. This steel wool is like a sponge, and I'm literally pretty much like wiping it. Just trying to get out any imperfections, any issues. Do not use sandpaper. Do not. Whatever you do. Look how shiny that is. It looks nice, right? A little bit of steel wool does some magic. So I just like to pull up a diagram just to make sure I'm not missing any parts or components in the hydraulic seal, so I can reference this as I'm rebuilding the cylinder. But you can see here, this is our cylinder housing that we had taken apart. This is the rod that we pulled out, as well as this is the rod cap. It looks like it has two seals. The one seal is to get like shit and debris out. The other seal is actually really your hydraulic seal. And then looks like they have 2 or 3 O-rings listed here for the cap. For the actual plunger itself on the end of the piston. You have obviously your steel housing, and it looks like you have 2 seals, although the one that we have looks like it has 3, so we could have an upgraded model of the cylinder. But in any case, I like to look at all this stuff just to make sure I have the right parts in the kit and that we're rebuilding this thing appropriately. Alright, so the seal kit that I purchased through Kubota, what I gave Kubota is I gave them the model number and the serial number of the loader frame of the tractor, and they make sure that you get the appropriate kit. So this is the Kubota seal kit, and this is actually the seal kit that's referenced in here as well. I was doing some more research, and they did make an update, one with 3 seals and one plunger with 3 seals, and one of these with 5 or 6 seals. So this kit accommodates the oldest LB400 and the newest LB400. So you don't want to screw up any orientation of the seal installations. If you put seals in the wrong direction, the cylinder is going to leak or it'll fail prematurely. So I like to write everything up here. So I put markings top. So this is the top of the cylinder, and this is the to the top of the cylinder as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dissect all these parts using my little pick kit. So this is the one O-ring for the threads, and then these are the hard seals. Okay, so we got 1, 2. These center ones, these are real tough, and they're like a super hard rubber. It's like a plasticky rubber, and they're super hard, so they deal with the high pressure, but they are very difficult to take off and put on. So we're probably going to end up damaging this damn thing, taking it out. Alright, and we are. Okay. We ended up breaking it in half, and that happens. So, you know what, looking at this, there's another piece of rubber in here. So it's a 2-part. There you go, and that goes on the inside. And that's about it. That's all of it. So, again, the spot with the O-ring we're going to put up there. So these are the used components. Let's take the new components and put them up here. So we got a new one of that. Looks like they changed it to green. That doesn't matter. New O-ring there. And this looks to be, yep, that's the right O-ring for that. Okay, so that'll go like so. All right, so those are our replacement parts for this one. And before I install everything, I'm going to take a rag and I'm going to clean up all of these in the event that there's any dirt, debris. Anything that's going to prevent these seals from fitting perfectly is going to create a leak for you. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So let's put that to the side. And let's get ready to install these. So what I'm going to do first is actually, I'm going to do the hardest one first. I'm going to do the hardest one first so I can get it out of the way. So first, let's take this inner O-ring and put it on here. You can do it with your hand. And although I put it on with my hand, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my light and inspect it because I want to make sure it's in the uniform direction. And it is not, so I'm going to have to rotate it. So for rotating, I'm just using a small flathead screwdriver. I don't want to use a pick because I don't want to make any holes in it, and I am just flipping this thing, rotating it, so that way it's on the same plane. There you go. And she fit herself. That's good. Alright, so we got that internal one in. This is the tough one. These are a motherfucker. And you got to be careful. You don't want to pry too hard because you don't want to create any indentation or anything like that. So, quite frankly, what I recommend you do is I'm going to start on this lip, and then I'm going to use my straight seal, and I am going to literally walk this thing on. Then I'm holding on with my finger, so I get 2 points that it's on here, and I'm going to stretch this one up over. You see how I did that? Now I rocked it on. And you might be looking at like, oh my god, this thing's deformed. It's going to bounce back, so don't worry. But I'm going to have to do the same damn thing again to go over this lip. So, it's hard for me to like do the camera at the same time, but alright. Again, I'm just walking this thing on. You gotta take it slow. There we go. And then I'm just slowly turning, walking this thing on. There we go. There we go. And now you can see how it's like overly stretched. Don't freak out over that. It's gonna bounce back. It will bounce back. So just let it do its thing. It'll slowly compress back into place. Yeah, so let's do the other ones. These little guards are nice. These like dampen the amount of load going to this thing. So these, quite frankly, these just snap on. And I like to put these, the splits, 180 degrees apart from this one. Kind of like a piston ring. I think piston rings are similar. And we're roughly 90 degrees apart. So that's pretty much done. And then you got your cute little thread O-ring that we're just going to put right there for now. Alright, so let's take this apart. We have an O-ring up top here. O-ring. And looks like we have an O-ring and a shim. O-ring. And then a shim. Oh, it's like a rubber, like a square gasket. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay, so these are the outer ones. Alright, it's going to be really hard to see. But you have this outer gasket. It's almost similar to the composition of a main bearing seal, but this is harder, and it's really meant to catch dirt and debris. Like you see all this dirt and shit, it takes the dirt off of the rod itself so it doesn't hit the seal, so it like protects the seal. But as this breaks and wears down, shit will hit the seal and you can cut it and start leaking. So first thing I'm going to do is take this inner seal out, and it's important to, when you pull this seal, to understand the orientation of the seal. And usually these hydraulic seals, so this is the internal seal, wherever you see that cup, you see that cup there? That cup is usually towards the hydraulic fluid. You can't tell here, but I'm going to pull it out, and we should see that this cup is facing towards the hydraulic fluid. So these seals, they see a lot of pressure, and they are a pain in the ass to get out. And we broke the seal trying to get it out. And that is super typical. Okay. I'm pulling her out. And again, this is the up part, and that's the bottom part. So if you can see, the bottom part has that cup like we thought it was going to have, and that's the top part. So again, putting the top there, and I don't see any other, yeah. So the only other one is this rod seal. The rod seal itself, which is like your debris seal, I always have to punch these out. That's how I get them out. So I'm using my little punch, pre-lining that up. I'm just going to whack this out. It's going to be pretty, it should be pretty easy. These aren't really in there with much force. And it fell out and hit the ground. Who knows where it went? It's very important to clean your rod cap as best as possible, because there always gets like dirt, debris, shit, hardened grease, whatever it is gets in here, and the O-rings never like it. This is the easiest part that's prone for leaks or premature seal failures, so you're going to want to make sure this is as clean as possible. Yeah. I'm going to take a screwdriver and run through this thing. See all that mud? Look at all that mud that came out. All that's going to hit your seal if you don't clean it up. That's why it's important so you don't get premature failure. Okay, we are ready for reinstallation. So, the first one we're going to do the toughest one, which is this, really the rod seal to the hydraulic fluid. You need a special tool to insert these. I will put a link into my description for the tool for these seal installations. Alright, so the way these seal tools work is you take your seal and you run your lip right on there. And what you're going to do is I'm going to fold this out, and I'm holding on to it a little bit because I want this thing not to flip on me. And so you see how I have this thing compressed? And so now what I can do is I can literally walk this thing in here. You may have to do a little juggling, but pretty much you're in this channel, and I'm going to unfold it. And I pretty much drop the seal in there. You can see how it's kind of deformed. I'm taking my finger, and I'm literally pushing it in place, and it snaps right in. See that? That was pretty simple and straightforward. That's the hardest part of this one. Now I'm going to put the little external seal, which is like a scraper, and what we're going to do is we're going to slowly punch this in. I have this little seal punch. And I'm going to take a little soft mallet, and we're just going to love tap this in. And you punch that in until you hit the bottom. And you want to double check. And we're looking good. We're looking real good. Okay. Next, let's put on our other O-rings. So let's make sure we have the right ones. And we have an extra O-ring, and I believe this extra O-ring is probably for either an older model or a newer model, because this kit services everything. This is a pretty crazy O-ring, and this is about the size of the rod, so maybe on some of the other ones they have a rod O-ring. Maybe? I don't know. That would be kind of weird, because these aren't really made for high pressure, so I don't know. We'll see. All right, so let's put this one on. Just rolling that into place. Cool. Now we're going to put this little, I'm calling it a spacer, but it probably prevents a lot of compression or crushing from this O-ring, and this also acts as a seal, probably. Okay. Look at that. So without further ado, we're ready to reassemble this piston. Lube up the O-ring on the inside here, and as well as on inside here as well. And I'm just getting a bunch of oil in there, just so that the seal gets wet. I'd want it to ride up and down this rod nice and easy. So I'm going to take my rod. I'm going to fit this on here. You want to be somewhat delicate. You want to fit it on, and it's going to be hard. There you go. She's on there. You feel that? It's nice and tight. Like, it's hard. It's not super easy, but it's tight. That's what you want. All right, so that's good. Next is we are going to take the O-ring for the threads here. We're going to roll this sucker on. It's a tight O-ring. These O-rings are a little harder than normal. Again, because you're dealing with hydraulic pressure. All right, I'm going to slide that on. So I'm going to pre-lube this one up too. And slide that on. Okay. Now we're going to retighten this up. She tight. Okay. Now with that on, I am going to clean these. And I'm going to lube up all of these seals here. And I'm going to make a mess, all right, because I want this to go on as smooth as possible. You're going to get your handle nice and juicy. All right, with all those lubed up, I'm going to take this. And again, I want to be careful with this because you don't want to hit the threads, but you want to make sure that this is sitting in here properly. And you want to make sure you're applying just subtle pressure on here. There you go. There we go. Nice. And you see how it's not like just falling in? It means your O-rings are still intact. That's good. And if I tighten this up, all right. Ooh, I feel compression. And see how she pushes back up? Ooh, see how it pushes up? It means the O-rings are intact and they're working, or the seals are intact and they're working. I'm gonna loosen this up. And now I can drop this in. Finally, I'm gonna lube up the hell out of these O-rings. These are the seal O-rings for the outer these are the seal O-rings for the outer hydraulic cylinder. So lube that up. Again, you want to take your time, make sure those go in smooth. And you should be able to just do this, tighten it by hand. That wasn't so hard, was it? You know, these things look scary, but they're not. All right, putting that back in the vise. Okay, so now I can tighten up on this cylinder. There you go, folks. We're going to loosen these up so it can breathe. Final check. Ooh, feel that? It's hard. It shouldn't be easy. Got ourselves a nice, good hydraulic cylinder, guys. All right. I got one more to do, and then we can go install this thing. All right, now we're going to test and make sure that these things aren't leaking. All right, so that's what we wanted. You also want to put load on the bucket, like I'm picking the tractor up with the cylinders, and that's a lot more pressure on the hydraulic oil to really see if it's going to leak. We got no leaks. She's looking good. Customer should be happy.